Okay, I think we are live now. Let me know if you can see this. I'm doing a different streaming setup than I have done in the past. So I don't know if it's all working. It's like going through like an intermediary software thing. So let me know if you can hear me, see me. Let me know if I need to adjust the volume levels. This is a different kind of mic than I've used before. So I have literally no idea how this is coming across right now. But let me know if you can. And then I was going to ask my husband to check in on volume too. You listen to my stream. Give me volume feedback. Okay. Yes. So hopefully that'll get us going. Hello, Formica. How are you? But yes, I'm having a very exciting start to the year, so I'm a little weird right now. I'm on my 3rd day home from snow days watching the kids, so we're a little weird. But hello, Nemo. Let me know how the volume sounds. I haven't used this setup before. I don't know if this is the right volume levels for everything, like feedback, please. I also don't know if my husband's plugged in the Ethernet or not, so we'll see. We'll see. But today we are going to be doing some, I won't say major, but some structural changes to the spell structure. And this is because I got feedback from someone very, very cool. It's slightly quieter than it used to be. Let's see. Okay, I increased it a little bit. We'll see how that works. 'Twas fun seeing you on Edgar's. Oh, you saw the quiz show. Okay, okay. For anyone who is not aware, I was on Artifactsian's channel, her podcast channel. Every year, Edgar pulls in friends of the channel, and they do like a Christmas quiz where everyone asks each other questions. So obviously, I asked Edgar a bunch of questions about rocks because it's an inside joke. I tease him about rocks a lot, especially after he had to follow or is following actively my rock and ore guide. So it was a blast, and actually that quiz ties into what we're going to be doing later today because of connections made. So this is going to be fun. But what was I going to say? I have a note. What is on my note? Oh yes, before we get into that, on the 19th, I have a stream set up, and I'm going to do a long stream. I don't know. I think I have like 5 hours that I could work on it straight. I don't think I'll make it that long, but I want to create a new naming language for my other project, for the book I'm going to start revising, because I figured I should probably change all the names before I do my major revision. Because I did that before I had started learning Conlanging stuff, so I had mostly just ripped off of Croatian, and so I'm going to make something custom now. So that's what we're going to do then. And then, hello, Thomas. And then, if you've been following along, this is my current globe update. I am sad I didn't get to paint this live or work on it during that Christmas live stream because I didn't have enough service. It's coming along slowly. But okay, let's get into it. So, goal for today. If you watch the Christmas quiz, which, at least one of you has done, 2 of the guests that were on there is the Petersons. And if you're not familiar with David and Jesse Peterson and you know anything about conlanging, I don't believe you. They're the people, right? And they're amazing. And I actually had the wonderful opportunity recently. Was it yesterday? It was Monday? I don't know. But I got to sit down with Jesse Peterson, who is amazing and so kind and so sweet, and she's amazing. And I actually showed her this. I sent her this PowerPoint, and I was like, this is thing that I did, and I don't know what an adverb is, right? I figured David and Jesse would be of great help. Yes. So I got some feedback from Jessie. One of the big things is that she said that I was not giving myself enough credit, that this is all more complicated than I thought it was, which is cool, exciting. But we have a problem with incorporation that she thought didn't make a lot of sense, that we are going to try to fix today. Thank you, Jesse Peterson. So if you recall from our spell structure, the way this sort of works is because it is a hello, Kyle. Because this is a polysynthetic language, it has a lot of incorporation, right? And so the way I have this working right now is that we have our main verb, which has the subject in it. It has all the bits of the verb, and then it has this post-verb section, right? And then there's some things that are unincorporated. And the things right now that we have unincorporated are like indirect objects, proper noun direct objects. And then if there's any additional like clauses, those end up getting pushed in front in a separate cluster, right? And so if I go down here to the determiners, down here breaking apart this verb stem bit right here, right? That's this. When we have a direct object, we can have determiners on there, which, you know, all sorts of stuff, which is fine. This all applies to the direct object. It's fine, right? It's all condensed. But then once we get to the post verb, I have this little section of like valency markers, which trigger unincorporated indirect objects. So it's something in our verb that is linking to something that is unincorporated elsewhere. And the thing that she explained to me, which I may or may not remember correctly, I may or may not say correctly, but this is what I got as the gist. When you have these polysynthetic, like incorporated bundles, that bundle should make sense on its own, right, as a statement. So, and I'll get to my examples next to where she was explaining this to me, but if I was saying like, let the pot boil through, and then unincorporated was the oven. I don't know, right? Saying let the pot boil through is not a contained statement, right? And then saying, like, even though we had the markers on top of, or not the markers, we had, yeah, were they like declensions? I don't know, but they were postfixes on the indirect objects or whatever was unincorporated that would then have a link saying, oh yeah, this is the answer to that little thing I link to in the verb. So it was all separated. And she said, no. So what we want to do is anytime we have like those bits that make it a separate thing, those have to be kicked out and get incorporated with the piece it belongs to, right? So I think, and we'll have to go through all of this, but I'm pretty sure that means all of this valency bit is gonna not be in the post verb anymore. It will have to be over in this unincorporated section here. And then this also comes in with clauses. Let me know if that like makes sense to people, like how much I should explain this to you so that you understand what I'm doing, so that when I do it wrong, you can tell me I'm doing it wrong. But here is a slide of examples that I gave to Jesse, or one of two slides. And so in these ones, a lot of these are pretty simple, right? Like start the fire where I'm pointing, right? That is a condensed chunk of information that means something. And then if you get down here to stir the liquid contents of, and then the unincorporated part is basically saying the location is this container, right? Those don't make sense by themselves, right? So it doesn't make sense for that to have been a word essentially, or a created word that is all incorporated together. Yeah. So basically, what this would have to be, this would essentially be, would need to be stir the liquid, or I guess it would be stir this liquid, and that it would be within this container, and we would need somehow this bit to be over here, which, it would probably have the same ordering, as the orders of here. So the object and the determiners would go before it. So sorry for clicking around so much. I think this would go here. Makes sense to Kyle. That makes sense. The locative marker would be on the unincorporated form. Yeah, so I think what we need to do is I need to go through the PowerPoint and rework it so that it makes sense. We need to maybe rename this unincorporated section because now they're not unincorporated, they're incorporated different things, if that makes sense. So I don't know which part of this gets broken up to be moved over here, but this also raises a lot of questions, right? Do we still need this marker over here? Probably not. We can probably just completely ditch that and throw it out with the trash, right? I don't think we need that anymore. But then it also, if we get down here, the very last thing we had worked on was going through the structure of this spell, which was essentially like, oh, Imva being the spirit, I beseech you. And then this clause being of them until their happiness being happy. And then the verb, create warm rain unto the plants. And then unincorporated was within the greenhouse. This is fine because the way I worded it is actually more correct. Well, okay. Other than this, the located within needs to move over here just like in the last example. But also the telic, the continuing part of it needs to get moved to this conditional clause because what this actually would probably say is create warm rain onto the plants continuously until, and that's what that word is, right? And so the telic marker needs to be incorporated with this conditional clause over here. And that telic marker, I'm not sure how we were pulling that in here. That might be the future case. I'm not sure. I don't know how we fix that. That's where we have to fix it. I don't know. And then this is going to make my program very, very sad because we have to fix all the code for this too. And now it is no longer a case of just having a couple little nouns bumped out over here with whatever case they're in. It's going to be more complicated because that's going to be their own, polysynthetic incorporated bundle of information. Yes. But in the grand scheme of things, I think this was her only note. Oh, she had a note about negation. Because the example I have of how negations work is I have it being an insertion, which is completely different than how I do everything else here. So she said I should probably make that either like a prefix or a postfix. So we should change that to... Yes, those are the only notes I have. I asked a lot of other questions about other things, but that is what we're doing here. So the first thing I'm going to do is probably duplicate the spell structure slide, mark this as old, just because knowing me, I will royally F this up and need to go back to it. But I think this is fine. All of this is fine, right? Yes, I think that's fine. So then we need, I think tense is fine. Is aspect fine? Because that's the telic part that would need to move out. So I think aspect, some of them would need to move out. Because it would depend on if they add another clause. Because if it adds another clause, then I think that would definitely have to move out. So we know telic would. So let me highlight that. Durative would be for a certain duration. I feel like that would be moved out because that would require a clause to explain what that is. Cesative would mean stop. So I think that's just saying, if you're saying burn the wood and then a cesative aspect, it just means stop burning the wood. So there's no additional clause there. So I think that one can stay. Someone tell me if it makes sense to do them differently like this. Let me know. Inceptive means start. So I think that would also have its own aspect. Or I think that would also be incorporated here unless you were saying start when this happens, and then I think it would be a whole separate clause. But now I'm wondering if it makes sense to split that and have it sometimes be a separate clause and sometimes be in here if it can be incorporated. I don't know. I would love people's thoughts on that because I'm not entirely sure. Iterative just means keep doing this. If you aren't saying until like a certain case, then I don't think you're adding a new clause. So I think these 3 could still be incorporated and you wouldn't need to add another clause and it would all be in there. It might still make sense to unincorporate them, perhaps. Maybe. But the valency ones definitely need to go because they always trigger an unincorporated direct object, where the aspects only sometimes trigger unincorporated clauses, I guess is a way you could put that. That sounds fancy. Intensifiers, I think those are fine to still be incorporated. That's like what we have up here in the mood clause, where we just say, you know, what intensity it is. So I think that's fine. I haven't actually done anything with adverbial phrases, so I'm just going to leave them for now, but I think it would make sense for that to still be incorporated. And then the tense, that's like future, present, past tense or whatever, right? I don't know. I think that's what tenses are. I could probably go and look and try to find where are tenses. Yeah, non-future and future. That can be... Let's see. That post verb is kind of like an auxiliary, so all of them can be there depending on if they originate from old verbs or adverbs. Depending on if they originate from old verbs or adverbs. I do not know what that means, the old verbs or adverbs part. Probably because I am a newbie and don't know anything. I think it makes sense calling it like auxiliary because it is all auxiliary stuff. So all of them can be there depending on if they originate from old verbs or adverbs. That second part of that I'm confused by. I don't know if you're saying that like as long as it's about what's in that incorporated bit, not about a separate thing, like until this thing happens, then it's a separate thing. I don't know if that's what you mean. But this all becomes something entirely different. I don't think we have any reason to still need any form of cases here. So I think we just delete those. And given, so they no longer have a special case. And then we have the valency markers would definitely move up to here, potentially. So that would be there. So that would be, whoa, that would be this guy. And we'll fix this. Okay. So there's that. And then aspect. I mean, aspect. Yeah, I mean, I feel like they would not be there if, for sure, they won't be there if they trigger like a clause. But if they don't trigger a clause, maybe they can stay. So in the case where they do trigger a clause and we have a separate aspect, this would be essentially up here, just general clauses. So this is not neatly going to fit on my single slide anymore. No. Okay. So let's, whoa, what just happened? Let's copy this whole bit here, move it over here, and this is now clauses. Yeah, clauses. we can probably just make this a little bit squishier. Move it down a little bit. Chuck it over here. And then move this over. And then make this part shorter. And then this whole thing goes in here. Okay. And so then, let's see. The clause. How is the structure? Let me go to the example we have. So subject, noun, or, well, happy isn't it? I don't remember. Reflexive future. Reflexive future. What is reflexive? Reflexive. Okay, action word. So that's a verb. So we have the verb. Oh my god. Sorry, I'm so lost. Okay. So this has its own verb in it, its own subject. And then we need to move in, I guess the aspect would go in here. That's a little confusing. Okay, so subject, I mean, it's basically a verb, a whole verb. All the verb bits, and then it just gets, I guess then here it can have the aspect. So like, oh wait, hold on. Nemo is hopefully going to unconfuse me. Like, cesative can come from a verb like to finish, which is reanalyzed as an auxiliary and thus takes the tense marker. Verb to finish. But it can also come from something like till now, which is an adverb and thus might not take the tense marker. Thus might not take the tense marker. Adverb. Till now is an adverb. Okay. I'm going to be honest with you. I understand English grammar less than I do this grammar, which is I don't. Okay, so cesative, which is an aspect, can come from a verb like to finish. So I assume that's just where it comes from, right? And then you apply it as an aspect, which is then reanalyzed as an auxiliary, right? Because you were saying maybe this category of thing is auxiliaries, and thus takes the tense marker. So the aspect itself would take the tense marker. Or could take a tense marker, right? Yeah, that makes sense. So like if the tense applies to the aspect, it would go there. So like keep doing this until this future case, then future would be on the aspect auxiliary thing. I think that makes sense. But it can also come from like till now, which is an adverb and thus might not take a tense marker. Right. So, okay, so I think if I am following, which is unlikely, I think what we're saying is all of these things can end up being on the clause, right? Like if they have a clause in them. So I think we're getting into the point where this is less a super nice, neat, tidy little thing and more of like an actual grammar, actual like grammatical structure of how you do this, where we're talking about general stuff and not just like a single pattern and formula, which is sort of how I've been thinking about it so far. So my brain is sad. We'll just start with that. But I think we need to move this down. Can I get that? Okay, move this over here because I think we should think about that separately. And this can just be like clauses, right? Because all the difference is going to be is it's still a verb, right? It's still a verb. A clause is a verb, right? Yeah. Yeah, it's a verb. It's still a verb. Yes. And so then we need to add some of it in there specifically. Show. Depends on what the language's goal is. If the magic users have regularized the language, it can absolutely be a neatly structured thing. Yeah, so the weird thing with this language, I don't know if you've seen any of those, the starting bit where I talked about like the purpose of this or not, but essentially this language is something that no one is fluent in anymore, and so it's something that they're translating out of like breaking code of grimoires essentially. So like there were previous magic users that knew these spells, wrote them in grimoires, but wrote them in a code, and now people are breaking the code and then translating the spells and learning, like figuring out what they do and stuff, and that's part of like the plot of my book. So I think it would make sense for there to be a more regular take on it, right? Because that's really the only way that they know anything about this language is these spells. And it's probably more likely for them to be simpler spells because then they're more reusable. But there will be some unique ones, right? So, yeah. So I think we need to have maybe we need to think about it slightly differently. And by we, I mean me. If verb stem post verb, if this is all valid stuff, right? But it has to go with what is relevant. Like it has to be on the relevant clause or on the relevant piece. It can't reference unincorporated bits. So maybe we just need to change this verbiage here, and clauses can just be verbs, right? And so the post verb, or what do we call it? We called it auxiliaries, maybe. But the auxiliaries in the post verb would not have markers for a variety of unincorporated bits, but they would be markers for, I guess, adding additional to the main verb. What do you call like the main piece of like a statement or a sentence or something? I know nothing about grammar, but like in general, you have a statement and there's like a main root part of a sentence, right? And then you can have side stuff that don't make sense without that main bit. That's a thing, right? English does that. That's a thing. I think that's a thing. But to whatever that like main core verb is, so it either adds additional info to the main verb. So example, a tense or an intensifier, or I guess, right, to the main verb, usually head. Okay. Okay, so that's how they, okay. That makes sense because you have head final, head initial, all that stuff. That makes sense. So yeah, okay. Okay. Yeah, that's either a head or in traditional English grammar, a predicate. Okay. I learn every day all the things I don't know. So I think it makes sense to say that these either add information to the verb stem or maybe to attached verb. Yeah, so these are basically adding information to the attached verbs, which might be clauses that then relate back to the head. verb, right? So that's like our head verb, and these are our clause verbs. Because I would assume like clause all have to be verbs or like verb-ish, I think. So you wouldn't apply any of this stuff to a verb unless it directly is part of that verb, right? So these highlighted ones would not go on our main head verb, they would go on a clause verb, if that makes sense. I think that makes sense, sort of, to my brain. I'm trying to like think over this and see if this makes sense, because grammar's complicated. I feel like I don't know if I need to have like multiple examples in here or something of just the different types of ways the structure can play out. But at the very least, I think this sort of makes sense, right? So I can get rid of this down here actually, because it is just a verb, right? That's all it is. This is a verb. So this is this exact same thing here, right? It's the exact same thing. They're the same, they're just different roles in the sentence. Okay, I think I sound like an idiot. It's okay. Oh wait. Yeah, okay. Okay, we're good. So I think this sort of makes sense. I didn't actually have to move anything out per se, except for the valency bits. Those had to move out because they would never be inside, right? Ever. So those always gets moved out. That's fine. Okay. Making examples usually helps. Yes. Yes, we need to make some examples. But let's jump through this real quick. So verb stem, blah, 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 blah. Let's see. A verb stem composed of a verb root that is already a verb. Verbalizers are fine. Verbalizing suffix is added. That's fine. Any direct... Okay, this is all fine. The verb stem is Gucci. We're good. It's fine. The nouns, spatial, possessive, plurality, object. I think this is all fine other than the... Do I have the negation in here? No, nothing in here is negated. But declensions, dative, locative, these I don't think we need anymore. Follows vowel or consonant. No, we still need these. We still need these because we use these like vocative here. So I still need the vocative. Where were we? Here. Okay, so I still need the vocative, but I don't need dative, locative, instrumental, or I guess, I mean, nominative is the default, so it's not really a thing. Accusative. Accusative. When was I using accusative? If it was a direct object proper noun. I think I still need accusative because otherwise this piece would normally, like this whole piece would normally end up right here. But this can only be an indirect object. Or not an indirect object, a non-proper noun, an improper noun, I guess, right? So like not like this can be bowl, but it can't be Susie. But Susie would have to go out here, so Susie would still need a marker for that. So we would still need accusative, we would still need vocative. Accusative was for unincorporated, yes. Exactly, yes. We're on the same page. Okay, good. Yes, so we still need that. So we're not completely losing our declension table. We are just losing these 3, which is fine. I'm going to, instead of deleting them quite yet, I'm going to strike through them because I still need to implement all these changes in the code base. Yes. So all of the rest of this is fine. Our plurality is fine. Our pronouns, our spatial determiners, that's all great. So then the post verb. This is where we have a problem. So these are no, well, actually, no, these are all still fine. They just go to on the indirect object. So these aren't necessarily triggering unincorporated indirect objects. These are linking, this might be a better way to put it for my brain. They are linking unincorporated indirect objects back to the head noun, head verb, or we'll say their verb. Independent and dependent version, same or different indirect objects. I have no idea what that note means. Isn't that helpful? But yes, so these are all fine to stay. They just get used a little differently now. And they are going to be, let's see, those are our post-verb valency markers. Oh, wait, here. So those are going to be first now. So previously, well, actually, no. Before they could have been like the start and the end of a word is, no, they couldn't. They could never start before. So the problem is now I have these set up to sort of be like prefixes, but now they're not necessarily going to be prefixes. They're most likely to be, wait, no, I have them the reverse, right? These are set up to be postfixes, right? Where there might be something after it, but I set them up nicely to follow all the rules for being at the end of a word. But now these will likely be the beginning of a word in most cases. So these will now be more likely to be like this. And I need to go through and see if these follow all the rules. The main rule being, I think it can't start or end with a plosive. Is that what our big rule is? I will check. If I go back here. Yeah, plosives can't start or end a word, which is in this language only T, D, and K. So do any of these start with a T, D, or K? No, I made my life easy. There we go. It's fine. Okay, so this is not a post verb marker. This would be, I guess these are markers on indirect objects. So indirect object marker prefix, I guess, would be how that would work, I think. Because if I go back here, I think they go before the noun, right? Because they're essentially a we're sort of using them as a determiner in this case. So, yeah. So I think that's right. So in theory, if we had a really simple spell, all we're doing is like changing where the space is a little bit and then removing that little end marker that we don't need in a lot of those cases. Okay. So this is all fine. Contains markers for a variety of unincorporated bits. Hello, Emma. Welcome. I normally do these very inconsistently. It mostly just depends on how crazy my life is. And, you know, it's fine. Okay. So this is still fine. Hello. Oh, I don't know, Emma, if you are familiar with, I guess the Artifexian podcast Christmas quiz or in general, David and Jesse Peterson, but I got some feedback from Jesse Peterson on this. What can you call it, a language? I don't know. It's a partial conlang, the spell language structure. that we are incorporating here. I hope you and the family had happy holiday. Thank you. I did. It was crazy. My kids are 3 and 5, so it's always a stressful endeavor, but it is rewarding and they are wonderful and it's good. So we're doing great. But yeah, so we're tweaking things. I think that's everything that needs to get tweaked for this slide. I haven't really gotten that into this so far. We had started on working on the code for this, but I haven't actually applied it to anything. That's just some lexicon notes. This is all unchanged. Okay. Valency is usually a term reserved for verbs, so in case of nouns, it'll be the case, not valency. Let's see, where do we have... Yeah, because these aren't related to valency, because that's not here anymore. Okay, yeah. So this is not here at all anymore. So let's take that out. Let's put it like there. And this should go with the nouns, which is this. Where's the nouns? Here's nouns. So let's move this up here from an organizational perspective. And yeah, you're right. It's not valency anymore. Case declension basically are stand-ins for add preposition. Your declensions are pretty much cases. Yeah, the declensions are cases, but the new ones aren't working as noun cases. Yeah, that's what this is. That's the declension table. These are all noun cases. That's that. Usually, languages have a few cases and then use them in conjunction with adpositions to specify. What you have as valency markers are basically adpositional markers. As valency markers, adpositional markers. So these markers, these guys, are adpositional markers. I'm going to real quick Google the word adpositional first. Preposition. Yeah, Yes. Agreed. I know this will confuse you. No, don't apologize. This, like, literally, I am learning almost everything I know about conlanging from the people watching the stream. You are all teaching me as we go along. And we're working through this together, and by that I mean mostly I'm limping through this like a toddler and you are all just being like, yes. Okay, I like that wordage, verbiage, the word choice there. So these are now prepositional markers. Prepositional markers that link unincorporated indirect objects back to their verb. I think that's still semi-accurate. I'm going to delete this because I don't know what it is, and I don't want to figure out what I think it means later on and be wrong. But these can all go into the noun section, not the post-verb section. Do we have room for it? Not really. Let's see. I had tried to make this all look like super nice and spaced out for Jessie to look at, because I was like, don't look at the horrible hot dumpster fire that is this. Judge me forever. Okay. So how much room do I need for this? I feel like I don't actually need that much room for it, although it would make the most sense for the declensions to be to the far right because they go to the far right of the noun, right? So you can have both the cases and add positional marker as you have them. No need to delete. Oh, you don't think I need to delete them? But wouldn't that be like weird to be like to have it all in one thing? Or do you think in terms of a system, it would make the most sense to be comprehensive and have the full gamut of declensions? So something like in-house equals in-house locative. Okay. 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 Yeah, I'm into it. I think that's fine, right? I think that makes sense. That's less work for me. And it does, I think, make more sense to be consistent, right? Versus not. So let's copy these back over into our updated form, which now doesn't really fit, but it's fine. And this is not valency. These are prepositional markers. And they don't trigger unincorporated objects. They explain unincorporated direct objects. You know, we'll just say that. That's like more correct than what it was in here before. So back to nouns. This is a whole bunch of pooey. So I wonder how these orderings would work though then. So we have our object, right? This is our noun. And then where would spatial, possessive, plurality, where would our preposition markers go in terms of the ordering? I would think because we're talking about like to, through, under, above. Which order? Okay. This is where I get a little confused in terms of I think it's word order, right? The like object, verb, subject, or SOV? Whatever the thing that gives you head final or not head final. I can't remember what all the pieces are. It's verb. Is it verb, object, subject? Is it? I can't remember. But I'm not sure which order that would give us here. Because I was thinking spatial was the least closely attached to the thing, right? Whereas the plurality was the most attached. Like is it one thing or multiple things, right? Like a group of things, an unspecified number, right? Like I feel like that made the most sense to be the closest. And then possessive was the furthest back. And then spatial was even less attached to it. So I think for the prepositions, so say like under, let's see, through. Can you, okay. Let me think of an example. We're talking about a tree. So if I say these trees that are mine, right? It's these, my tree, right? So then if I'm saying under these trees that are mine, I feel like it would go at the very beginning. I feel like that makes sense for my completely random logic that I'm using here. Prefix order can be whatever you want. There are tendencies associated with word orders, but there's no universal law. Okay, so then I can keep going with my random, what makes sense in my brain for the closeness to the noun, I think. So these are our, what would you call these? These are, I mean, I guess we can call them prepositional markers, but wouldn't all of these also be prepositional markers then? I don't know. Prepositional. And are they technically, could you call them determiners then? I feel like I'm getting to the point where my word choice that I'm using here is becoming more and more fuzzy, if that makes sense. But if this is our ordering, that means these can get chucked all the way over there. Go like right there. And it means that this would go all the way on the left side, which gets in the way of our stuff here. Put that way up there. I'll do this. Move this here. Move this over. This great and interesting conlanging stream where I fight with PowerPoint. Okay. So this goes all the way over here. We'll move nouns up there. I'm going to get rid of that bit. Yeah, close enough. That's like, at least it's all on the right slide. 90% of making a conlang is just figuring out how to organize the data to be less infuriating. And 10% making the conlang. I relate to that. Okay, so it's not just me. Okay. Although I would hope that some people, well, I guess you can't remember everything. People don't automatically become like hyper fluent in a language just because they've created it. So it makes sense that even people that have memories better than a goldfish would have this problem. I've seen way more technical difficulties during conlanging with David and Jesse. I'll take it. Well, we haven't gotten to any of the code yet, so don't say that too quickly. And we end up spending like 30 minutes where I can't get my code to compile or something horrendous like that. But okay. So I think we're good through here. We're good through here. This is all fine. So then this, I think I might want to just delete this because I had this in here for like as a talking point to go over this with Jesse. Let's see. I've had so many cases where I just forget what several entire spreadsheets are actually talking about and have to go on a massive treasure. That sounds awful. Oh no. Oh, I'm just impressed. It looks so nice and organized. Thank you. The PowerPoint is the organized bit. And it's only super organized right now because I spent like literally 4 hours on like Sunday, I think it was, going through and trying to make it as clear and neat and tidy as possible because I was going to have someone look at it. So it's in a really great state right now. The code is not though, but we'll get there. We'll get there. Okay, so what of this is still good? This is fine. This is fine. This is fine. This is fine. We already changed this. This is going to need to be tweaked, and this is going to need to be tweaked, which is fine. Once we change everything, I'll rebuild the spell book and can reinsert the spells in here. And then here, this is all bad. It's all bad. These are all the more complicated ones. So this needs to move out. I'm just going to, for now, highlight these so that we remember. This needs to move. This and this both need to move. But is that it? Create proximal plants. Warm, wet sky in proximity to the plants. I think that's fine. Fine. Clap, chef's kiss. I'll take it. I'll take it. My conlangs live in poorly arranged spreadsheets. They'll never look this nice. I am, for some strange reason, like spreadsheets do not work for my brain. They're not like graphical enough. I feel like I can't think in my head. This is like the ADHD talking. But I can't like think in my head. I have to put information and then like it around and then I can like understand it and process it like that. So like I need things where I can move them around and have them in relation to things and all of that. I don't know. It's important for me. And it has to be, I need to be able to see everything I need to see at one time or I forget it exists and then I can't think about it. Cause like, I don't know. You probably don't need to know how my brain works, but yes. So I think we have gotten far enough that we need to fix the code. Which, for those of you who haven't seen my code yet, I apologize that this is your first, yeah. Yep. Okay, so let me stop screen sharing. Let me present, share screen, window. Oh no, where did it go? Here we go. Conlang. Share. Okay. We're on different ends of ADHD then. Yeah. I buy it. Like, I don't know if it's like specifically the like inattentive ADHD part or if it's just the like, I don't know. I don't know, but it's just how my brain works. Let me scoot this over real quick. Save. Update. Okay. That should look a little bit better. Let me know if you can read this or if I need to plus up the font size. When I get to the point of conlanging, I plan to use Notion in their databases, but I'll probably also use Google Sheets to confirm my data ahead of time because backpedaling Notion databases is hard. I want to try out Notion. Every time I've tried like some sort of digital anything to do anything related to anything, it just fails miserably for me and I can't use it. Like I've tried World Anvil, I've tried Campfire, I've tried Plotter, I've tried Obsidian. Like for some reason, none of it works for me. But I really want to try Notion for planning like YouTube stuff at some point, but I don't know. For some reason, this code program thing has been working well for me, even though it's digital. I think it's because I control it, and then it's less scary. But I will assume no one's pleas for help. Oh, you have switched to Obsidian for conlanging. I'm very curious how that works. Although honestly, it's probably less insane than what I'm doing. But yes, wow, coding, yes. For people who do not know, right? If you new here or haven't seen these pieces of my conlanging streams, I do conlanging through software. And it's software that I wrote. This is what I do for my day job. I am a software engineer. So I'm doing this in Java, which is the software I am the most fluent with. And it's a whole thing. Like, if enough people, like, if more than two people, no, if two people or more say they want a brief overview, I can give like a super quick, like 5-minute, like Cliff Notes version of how this works. But the long and the short is I have the program set up to do like generations and build everything, and it holds all the rules and everything so that I can tweak it and rebuild everything. So right now, the part that we need to change is the grammatical part, which is mostly just these objects that I have. So software engineer, active YouTube channel, raising a kid, and publishing a book. 2 kids, and I have a husband to raise. So I mean, you know, I just have no free time. It's my personality. I don't like to not do things ever. But yes, so I have created this object, which is a spell, and I don't expect you to like be able to comprehend the actual code. I'll kind of talk through what I'm doing as we go. And basically the way the spell works is it has a bunch of things in it. And this is sort of creating the same thing that you were seeing on that PowerPoint. So it has like the verb root, action morphemes, possessive determiners, the tense, the aspect, right? It has all these pieces that you give it. Which then, where do I build them? Spell library. Yeah, so here's an example of where I built them. And these are like the examples that I put in the PowerPoint, but like scrub with rag, the only thing it has is it has that verb root, which is scrub, and then it has the instrumental trigger marker with, and then it has, what's this last thing? Indirect objects to noun cases. It has the rag as an indirect object with the noun case instrumental. And then it builds it and will apply all of the like Sandhi stuff and any of the sound changes and then output it. So if I change any of these individual pieces in the code, when I regenerate it, everything will be correct again in theory. This is Java. For some reason, even though it's much simpler and would probably work so many times better for this, me and Python do not get along. Oh, never mind. You could just read. It's good. It's good. It's good. Okay, so we have to do some major rejiggering with this spell object, and then all the methods that I have that actually build the spell. So to think about this, the things that we're changing is the valency stuff that's no longer valency. Are there plans to set a game in this setting too? No, no games. This is for a book I'm writing. I'm more comfortable with Python than Java, but I know I have to learn it. Yeah, like I have written in Java code for the last, like, I guess I'm getting close to a decade now of my life that I've basically exclusively worked in Java, so I'm pretty comfortable with it. I have done basically nothing with Python, so I don't know it. Okay. Action morphemes, fine. Possessive determiners, fine. Spatial determiners, fine. Direct objects are fine. That's fine. Okay, so this is the stuff that needs to change. Tense and aspect is sometimes fine, but I'm going to need a way to know... Okay. We're thinking here, right? I haven't actually expanded this to include additional clauses yet, so we can just not worry about that part of it. But later I need to handle additional clauses, and that'll be a later thing. But all of these are going to be different now, and these are no longer triggers. Whoa. These are no longer triggers. These are just prepositions. So let's start from the bottom and work our way up and go to these objects. So markers that trigger. So I have the dative trigger, which should be a preposition now. So these should be a prepositional marker. Marker that... Would this be like explains an unincorporated indirect object? That takes attaches to an unincorporated indirect object as a recipient or beneficiary? Maybe that's correct. Triggers, marks. Maybe? I think that might be correct. And this is no longer a trigger. So let's call this... How did I name my other determiners? I didn't call them like triggers. I just said marker. So I think we'll just call this a dative marker, and that'll be it. So that's dative. Let's go to instrumental. Let's rename this to not say trigger. And marks as an instrument. Marks an instrument. I think that's actually a much better way to word that. It marks an unincorporated indirect object as an instrument. Okay, so then we'll edit this one, rename this to not be a trigger. Oh no. Okay. Here we go. All right. So this marks, and these all mark instead of trigger. So marks a location, action that is happening, whatever. I think that still makes sense. So we have one last one, which is the locative one. Marks. Okay, so I think this is going to be fine. And in this case, this one is really neat, right? These markers, because they are always going to be booted out. They have nothing to do with clauses. They're going to make a lot more sense. So if I go back to the spell, let's jump to where they're used, because the spell is sort of like a high-level object. And so, oh, we should probably rename these to be like just markers. Rename, dative marker, lative marker, come on, locative marker, and instrumental marker. Save. So if it's present, an indirect object does not contain dative. So I think this is all still correct. All of this stuff is basically just saying if we have the dative marker, we need to have an indirect object that is of the dative noun case. That's all still going to be applicable since we're keeping both. So that's fine. So then we won't worry about that. We won't worry about the verb. The verb stem isn't changing for this part. Neither is the action morpheme. The post verb is changing. Let me make this bigger. Okay, so these lovely friends don't have anything to do with this anymore. So what I'm going to do is just say remove. We're going to remove those. But they need to instead go into our unincorporated objects, which are going to be, I feel like calling them unincorporated objects is too limiting of a term now that we have this other stuff in there. But, and the other thing to note is this does not include any of the other additional stuff that you can have for an unincorporated object, because I guess I'm sort of expecting you to build those separately, / I haven't had to do this yet in the code. But okay, so this is adding it if it's a proper noun. So this is not the case we need to worry about, right? And this adds one separate bit, and this is for each indirect object. So for an indirect object, we want to add the prefix marker, which I only have. Okay, this is a problem. This is a problem. This is not going to work structurally because the way my program works is you can have any number of indirect objects, but you can only have one of each of these. So you have no way of knowing which ones they link back to. Prepositional phrases are a term for them, or noun phrases, depending on the head. Dumb question. Could not all the rules be defined with some condensed language rather than spread around in code? With some condensed language. I don't know. I mean, so the thing here is I'm using Java like an object. I mean, it's an object-oriented language. So the way you work with Java is you create a lot of objects. So that's sort of how I've done this here, where all the grammatical pieces are objects and I use them in different ways in different places because this is super formulaic. For general nouns and like verb roots and like all of that, like all those morphemes, those are going to just be in like a whole list of things, right? But I'm sure there is a more condensed way that you could do this, but it wouldn't necessarily make as much sense to my brain. And I like having it split up a lot because then I can have all this like documentation and differentiate between everything because again, my brain knows and remembers nothing. But yes, so I think I need to have, like, what did you call them? A noun phrase? Because I guess that's what these are. Like, these are unincorporated noun phrases. I guess that's more accurate. So my spell instead might need to have lists of noun phrases. To do list of noun phrase. It's so nice to be able to see all the rules on a page or so, though. Yeah, I mean, I can agree with that. And in my when it comes to, actually, let me show you this real quick. Because I'm doing all this grammar stuff, it's a bit different, but the main language rules for, I guess, phonetics and phonology and all of that, that all goes in this rules file, which, like, I have defined, okay, here's all our constants and all our vowels. Here's our, like, the percentage weight chances of different lengths of different parts of a syllable. Here's the syllable weight chances in a name. Various validators, and I have in the language rules object, I have a bunch of other stuff that I could extend to add a bunch of language rules. So, like, all of those kind of rules would all be in this one file, right? Which is how I built the program originally. And then, like, my library is just all of these little, like, individual pieces that are words, and this is mostly just so that it doesn't regenerate something that I already have that means something. So if I'm like, let's generate 10 random syllables, I don't want it to take one of my syllables that already means something. So I just do that so that it rules it out. But this is my first time doing this too, so I'm sure there's, like, once I've done it a few times, I'll figure out a better way to do it, and it'll change 87 times until I have it done, and then I'll try and, constrict it and make it as elegant as possible, but for now, it is heaping dumpster fire. But yes. So I think what we can have now is a list of noun phrases, and I think later I could do it similarly to add clauses, because now, right, that change we've made to this is that each of those bits will have all the information it needs, so it won't all need to link back and forth as much, which will be nice. I can't wait for the app you release to the community. Every time I do this, people talk about that, and I don't know if it's possible. I had someone who's a front-end designer or like a front-end developer reach out to me and be like, "Hey, like, if you need someone to make the front-end portion, let's chat." And I'm like, I don't think it would work for this because I'm building the code around this specific language, right? Like, all those other language generators, I mean, I'm sure it could be a list of rules if you actually understand language and that's how they do it, right? But, like, the only way I understand it is in these formulas, right? So what this essentially is right here is a formula, because I don't actually understand grammar or linguistics or how anything works. So I am creating formulas that I can then shove stuff into based off my very vague and limited understanding of how all of these things work. Are we distracting too much with our questions? I mean, that's up to you. I mean, if you're all like, "Hey, focus," you can yell at me to focus more, but, um, yeah. Yeah, exactly. It has to do all the generation and all of that stuff. Grammars are used to generate stuff, though. Yeah, I mean, I think it really depends on how you think about it. The part of this that is for, like, phonology and phonetics and the generation of just syllables is generally applicable, and I could make that publicly available, because alls I have to do is define, like, here's all the restrictions and what you can do, and then it will generate stuff. It is limited again because I don't use IPA in here. I only allow this to generate things that are, like, English speaker pronounceable. So I have a ton of, like, checks and filters to not generate things that I think would objectively not be pronounceable from someone who really only speaks English. So, like, there's a lot of limitations like that in here, but that part people could use, but it doesn't help you at all with grammar. So, like, I could maybe put part of this as, like, a naming language generator, but I don't know. I think I need to do this 87 more times before I'd be able to do that. And even then, I would need to make some sort of UI for it. But who knows? Maybe sometime in the future. But noun phrases. I like calling them noun phrases. So what we need to do is I basically need to make a brand new object. Because right now it just has this map here of string to noun declension suffix, because I really only had two things that could be in one of these little phrases, right? It was the indirect object and whatever the noun declension was. So now it's a little bit more complicated. But they yeah, but you get what I'm saying. Like, my whole purpose for doing this is to create things that are going to go in English books. So like it's only going to be read by English speakers. So I kind of have to like, you know, do of the things that make sense there. Plus I can't pronounce anything, which I think part of the problem from that is that I learned most of my vocabulary from reading and not audiobooks. So like half of my vocabulary got super cemented in my brain without a correct pronunciation. So I can't pronounce anything correctly. And I'm really bad at that. But let's see. We can close all of these bits. And we need to create a new object. So new Java class. And this is going to be a noun phrase, I think is what we were calling this. Add. So we're going to basically do a similar structure, right? We're creating a little formula for a noun phrase. And this is going to have, where's the bits we're stealing? This is essentially what we're expanding here. And then we'll have a shortened version of this that just has the noun phrase stuff. So public noun phrase, and this will take string. Well, actually, you know what? If we're doing this, let's do it right. Let's do it right. Let me reference my PowerPoint, which you all can't see, but there's a lot of stuff that could go in a noun phrase that's not just here. Let me copy this over so that we can all see it together. Okay, here we go. These are all our bits and bobs that we need to look at. So we can have a prepositional marker, spatial determiners, possessive determiners, plurality prefix markers, and objects. And actually, this is more than just... I mean, yeah, that's a noun phrase, right? That's the object and all the things that can attach to a noun, which this bit can also sort of... Part of it can be incorporated in certain cases, but let's not worry about that right now because I'm going to confuse myself more than I already am. Yes, so string, a prepositional marker. Do I have that incorporated in here already? That's, yes, that's all the things we already have. And it can't be all of them. It can only be one of them. So actually, I might want to condense that. So we'll just make this be a string. And we'll call this prepositional marker. And this is essentially our like lative, dative, instrumental, etc. But if we're using these only in this case where we would only ever want one of them, because I can't think of any reason why you'd want, like, you can't say within underneath on the same thing. Like, I don't think that makes sense. So we would only ever have one, whereas previously I needed to differentiate them. So honestly, I can probably roll those all up into a single class now and just have them be like one thing. So I will need to do that. So to do roll up into one, I guess enum. because then they'll just be prepositional markers. They won't have to be grouped separately. I'll do that later. So yeah, prepositional marker, and then we have spatial determiner, which spatial determiner, I actually already have the object for. So it can have any of the spatial determiners. And then I will have the possessive determiner, which... Do I have a whole separate thing for that? Have I used that at all? Possessive. Possessive just... Oh, it just uses my pronouns as... Because they get reused as the possessive. Is that 2 S's? Determiner. Yes. So then we would have plurality, which I'm pretty positive I don't have that yet. It doesn't look like I do because we would see it here. So I need to add that. So we'll just make it a string for now. Marker, I guess. Create enum for that. So yeah, so we have the prepositional marker, spatial determiner, possessive determiner, plurality marker. And those will all go into the noun phrase. Noun and our noun declension suffix and the actual string, right? So we still need those things. So we need the actual object for the noun, which I guess that's the noun. Yeah. And then we will need the noun declension suffix for the noun declension suffix. Great. And then our constructor, and I might make multiple constructors for this later. And honestly, this would actually probably be the easiest to make in Kotlin using builder patterns, which will mean nothing to any of you. But instead of having like when I build the spell, having to have like an empty spot for everything I don't use, and like you can't tell what everything is, it would be like create a spell dot verb root this dot verbalizing suffix dot. So like you would see the labeling for everything that you're putting in the spell to make it easier to understand. Good evening, Eddie. Hello. I don't know if I've seen you about the streams before. Welcome to the chaos that is this code. Yeah, so where was I? Pronoun prefix marker, the plurality one, the noun. I feel like this is the least interesting part of the stream so far. I don't know. I mean, I assume that this is horribly boring for everyone, like the part where I'm in the code, but I could be wrong. So we're just, you love seeing, I'm glad someone loves seeing the code. Let's see, where were we? Prepositional marker equals prepositional marker. Oh, you're new, Eddie. Well, welcome to the chaos. I am restructuring my spell language structure after wonderful feedback from the wonderful Jesse Peterson. And so I'm changing all of my code to be able to hold it. You're gradually being brainwashed into wanting to try something similar. Like the software, like writing code to do it, like that sort of a thing. Spatial determiner. Hello, Camille. Wow, there's so many people popping in now. It's like almost 9 p.m. here. I don't know if it's a more convenient time now for everyone. This dot possessive determiner equals possessive determiner. Yeah, like I feel like there are ways to do this that's more general where you don't have to do it in this object-oriented way, but I feel like you really have to understand linguistics a lot for that to make it that general. And I just really don't. I really, really don't. Okay, so here's our constructor, And then because I think we need... No. This is the part that we're mostly going to be copying, although... How do I want to handle proper nouns? There's a question, right? Because both indirect objects and proper nouns are kicked out. I might just want the proper nouns to be their own thing, right? Because, okay, wait, okay. We're talking about Sally, right? We wouldn't say multiple Sallys, right? You wouldn't have plurality on a proper noun, but you could have possessive on a proper noun. So you could say my Sally, and you could say like under Sally. So, but that would be using it, that would be an indirect proper noun. But you could have possessive on it. I don't know. I don't know. It might make sense to have a marker of whether or not it's a proper noun. Because, well, if it's a proper noun, then it gets the accusative case. That's the only special thing about it. So I think that... Yeah, I think that's a separate thing. What were you saying? It might help to have a list of spells or phrases that you want to encode in the language. Yeah, so I mean that's how we started this, right? Was just by building it out, by creating like, here's an example spell, the simplest one I knew I needed, and then we built out the language to handle that, and then we've been sort of expanding out. And I need to right now. I'm worried about replacing the spells I currently have in that PowerPoint, and then we can expand it a little bit in the future. I think at this point it has surpassed... Yes. So this is definitely expanded past a naming language. I don't know. I couldn't tell you because I don't understand linguistics or language enough to tell you if this is like all the grammatical bits, but it's at least like a partial language because I have a lot of grammar. I have a lot of like structure in here. I don't have everything, but I think I have a lot of it at this point. It's just very formulaic because it's only for spells. But the roots of this language is for naming languages. All this code that's for the spell specifically, so all the grammatical stuff, that's all only in the folder for this language, which is spell language right here. Like everything is in here. Whereas I have all the high level naming language bits higher up, and that's the like common parts that I reuse for all the naming languages. So I'm basically abusing my naming language software to try and do grammar now. Okay, what if there's an unmarked proper noun after the main verb? It's just automatically assumed that it's an object, and otherwise it isn't marked. Okay, what if there is an unmarked proper noun after the main verb? Unmarked. So I don't think you could have... Oh, I guess... Okay, so if it's unmarked, it would automatically be nominative. Nominative, I think, is what that... let's find it. Nominative. Where do I have that? There we go. Yeah, the declension nominative would automatically be applied. And then, yeah, you just have to assume it's an object because that's the default there, I think. How is the output? Do you have it in a terminal? It's a terminal. It's literally just... Oh no, but I broke it. Here's the problem, right? Did I break all of this already? Actually, no, I think I didn't break it because I added comments. Okay, this might work. This might work if I can make this compile. Does this compile? Maybe. Okay, so if I go to my main method, just to kind of show you what we're starting with, conlang, what this is going to do is call my spelllang method, which will create my language. It will create the spell language builder, and it is going to print my spell book entries. Oh no, my mouse. I'm sorry about you saying, but I broke it. That's the problem with all of this. It's true. Okay, so let's run this and see if I broke it or not. Na, 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 na. Okay, here we go. So I have this set up where it prints out all of my spell books. So I have the magic pool spell, which this is what that spell is. This isn't including the initial bit, right? The like, oh, whatever the name of the spirit is, I command you, whatever, because that's boilerplate. And this will eventually have the Sandi rules applied, whereas this does not have the Sandi rules apply. So they're the same right now because I haven't gotten that far yet. And then this is just extra details I've given it, and it prints all of them out for me, which is very nice of it to do. But yes, that is the output, and then see, no language has everything. There are languages out there that can be said to have no numbers, which many people think are basic. Yeah, I don't have any numbers. There are no numbers in this language either. So, word order can also specify nominative and accusative. For example, English does it. You don't necessarily need an accusative marker. Yeah, I only have, so the only reason I have an accusative marker is when something was supposed to be incorporated but can't. And otherwise it's nominative. So if I don't have accusative in this case, for this language, it would be nominative, I believe. I'm trying to imagine the code it took to concatenate all of this. It's really not that complicated, honestly. Like, where is it? Where is it? Where do I build all the spells? Of course I can't find it now. Let's see. Print spellbook entries. This is the code, is it. So it prints that initial bit and then it logs this for every individual spell. And I define the list of spells here. And then, like, this is all the info for the spellbook entry, and then each individual spell is in this class, which builds them with the pieces. It's a lot. That's the idea here. So we were building noun phrases. Yes. Okay. So I need to change how this is structured slightly. But I think what we were talking about was with proper nouns. I think I can include those proper noun bits as a noun phrase. I just need to know that they... How much do I want to know versus do I want the program to know? Because I can know that if I have a proper noun, I need to mark it as accusative, and it doesn't go in the normal bits. Because I have a specific spot for direct object right now in the spell where it's like, what is my direct object? And then, but is it a proper noun? And that determines whether or not I put it here or I put it there. I could just manually do that. And I could just not put it in direct object if it's not a proper noun. It doesn't have to have an accusative case, even if it's not incorporated. Would that work, though? Because I think the way I was assuming this would work is that if I had a proper noun, that proper noun is an indirect object, and it's not a direct object. So could it still... Would that work? Like, how would you know? Because otherwise it could be like... I mean, I guess you would use context clues of understanding the sentence to know if that would count as the direct object or if it would be an indirect proper noun object. I reckon doing it manually might save you so much time, especially with nativizing the proper noun into the language's sound system. You're probably right. You're probably right. You know what? We're not going to make this more complicated than we need to. That's a good call. Like, if you're making a spell and targeting a character with a distinct name, in the story, the characters could just call out that name. Yeah, that would make sense. Thank you for streaming this. I can't remember the last web development live stream I've got. But the point isn't web development. We're conlanging, I promise. Oh my gosh. Okay. We're getting to the point where we're gonna have to Oh, call out that name of the spell as opposed to just being generated. Yes. Okay, I understand that better now. I misinterpreted that slightly. But yes, once we start building it and it actually is a thing, we can reference it and yeah. Yes. Yes. Agreed. Direct object is any object of the verb. So I hit the apple versus I hit Nemo. Both the apple and Nemo are direct objects. Yes, right. So in this case, normally the apple would be incorporated in the verb, right? So it would just be there. So it is like assumed to be accusative, or is that how accusative works? I don't know. But it's the direct object, like you're saying. And so it's incorporated because it's not a proper noun. But the second that apple becomes Nemo, it is no longer in the verb. It is kicked out of the verb, and it is now in this separate noun phrase. And the way I have it noted is to then it would be accusative, because that's how I'm saying this is not another separate noun. This is the one that goes in there but isn't in there. If that makes sense. The one time you're not doing a more artsy world building activity. I know, I do a lot of like side quests for my writing, I call them. Or as most of you might see them, my writing is a side quest to the world building. Oh my gosh. Okay. So, am I ready to break this? I don't know. I don't know if I'm quite ready to break it yet. Let's see how far we can get without breaking what's in here. Because basically we need to do this. So let's just build the noun phrase. So this is the method that I'm going to call to actually build that piece of it for each noun phrase that ends up in the spell sentence. Private void, no, string. We're returning a string. Build noun phrase. Although, am I making this? Yeah, it's not static because it's referencing this. Okay. So we are essentially, do I use builders for this? Let's do a builder. And this is just a way to build a string to make my life easier. Phrase builder, and then we'll return phrase builder.toString. And this will build each of the individual sections. So the first thing is our prepositional marker, which right now is just a string. That'll change when it's not a direct string anymore. And then after the prepositional marker would be, oh, well, I forgot. I'm doing these optionally. Gross. Yeah, I forgot this part. The way I've been handling this is I'm making them all optional. So let's go through and do that. Optional. Optional. This is optional. The noun itself is not optional. Another dumb question. Why could we not start with English phrases and translate them into the conlang with word generation plus grammar restructuring rules? So the problem is that you would need to know what every single English word is. Like, it would need to know that Sally is a proper noun. It would need to know that run is a verb, right? Like, it would need to know all of those things. And the way I build verbs is different. So like it would need to reverse engineer like, oh, I don't like rain, right? The word rain doesn't have a direct translation in this language. Rain is basically saying like wet air. Like humidity is essentially the same thing like as what rain is called in this language, right? Like so it's just there wouldn't be a way to do it. You think there are packages for that though? I don't know. I've never done language stuff in code other than this, so there might be ways to do that. But again, like if you build words differently, I don't think it would work. I think if you did something super basic, it would maybe work. Um, it would have to somehow extract semantic meaning out of the phrase in order to translate it. Yeah. So, like, an AI could maybe do it. One-to-one translation doesn't really exist usually. Yeah, that's the other problem, because even for, um, my spells, like, if I go back to, the weird one that I have, like, the English, I had to translate it myself into what the equivalent English is, but that is not a direct translation, like a one-to-one, and, like, a direct translation doesn't even make sense because it's not, like, it's just so different. Yeah, NLP, is that like what? Natural made learning I don't know what that stands for. I don't know what that stands for. But yes, way over ambitious for what we're doing here. But let me go back here. I'm going to make the noun declension suffix not optional because natural language processing. It was somewhere. It was up there. I just couldn't find which bucket that acronym was in my brain. Okay. So yes, all of these also now have to be optional because I changed it. The tediousness of coding. Bleh. Spatial determiner. There we go. So now, prepositional marker, we have to do, oh gosh, let's see if I can remember how to do this. That, if present, phrase builder dot append it. Ignore that. I'm just unwrapping my optional. There we go. That's the nice way to do it. Okay. So now we want to do the spatial determiner if present, but this one I can't do a direct append. So this has to be it phrase builder dot append it dot is this an affix or a prefix? I don't know. Oh gross. Okay. So if the prepositional marker is present, then we're using an affix, not a prefix. And this is because in this language, I have a rule that you can't start or end a word with a plosive, which honestly, if I had not made that a rule, it would make this whole thing so much easier. But so basically, there's a sound change that happens if something that has a plosive at the beginning or end ends up at the beginning or end of a word to make it match the language rules. So if the prepositional marker is present, it's not starting the word, so we don't need to worry about whether or not it has a plosive. So we would get, if it's present, we'll get the affix, which I think for some of this, that does start with a plosive, if that makes sense. And then otherwise, we will get the prefix, because if there is no prepositional marker, because we're having a strict order here, because it makes my life easier. I don't think you need to watch out for plosives occurring at morpheme boundaries when creating morphemes, since the Sandhi checks will correct it later anyway. So does this, okay. This is, I Googled things. Tell me if I am stupid here, right? So I think the Sandhi is for boundaries between morphemes, right? Like you said. So like morpheme, this bit, right? So when I have two things that get mashed together, if that creates something that's wrong for the language or for something that I've just decided there's a rule to change it, it gets changed. Would that apply, though, in this case, because it would then be at the beginning of the word? So it wouldn't be a morpheme boundary anymore because it's not touching another morpheme. Or would that still count for the morpheme boundaries because it's like, does the beginning of the word still count as a boundary? Is the question. But regardless, I think that would still apply. I created hard-coded versions of this, which at some point, once I actually have all the Sandi rules, might not be relevant anymore. Like, in theory, I could take them out. But maybe these ones are just special. I don't know. I think you're right for Micah. You are absolutely correct. But it's not that smart yet. But, okay, the beginning of the word is definitely counts as a boundary. Okay. That is good for me to know. I'm going to leave myself a note here, though, that in future, this may be irrelevant due to Sandi rules. I'm going to leave myself a note because these don't yet happen. So I may have to come back and do this. But for now, I have both an affix and a prefix version. That can be simple present. We're talking about tenses, right? Present is a tense. Nomic, habitual, or several other things which is not clear until you see the context. So you can't do... Oh, you're answering... Okay, you're talking to Osif. Is Osif how you would pronounce that? Osif? 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 Again, I'm horrible at pronouncing literally everything. Anyway, spatial determiners. We've added the spatial determiners. Now we need to add the possessive determiner, which should just be this kind, I think. Let's see. Possessive determiner, if present, dot append dot get marker. So this one, I haven't created a separate one. Yeah, so that's possessive. So what's after possessive? Then we have plurality markers, which doesn't actually exist yet. It'll eventually look like this because it'll be a special type of object, but it's not yet. So we'll just do it, which it's going to be sad about because I could be fancier with, but I don't want to be. So then now we're adding the noun. So that's just a straight append the noun. And then after that, we're requiring phrase builder dot append the noun declension suffix. Get suffix. Okay. And so that is going to be everything that needs to go in a noun phrase, which actually, let me make this public so that I can call it from other classes. All right. So okay, so we have noun phrases now. So let's go back to the spell, and we're going to break this just a little bit. Instead of having this, we are instead going to have a list of noun phrases. And this will go away, which for now, because I will likely break it, we're just going to comment it out. This also makes this part irrelevant, so we'll comment that out. And it makes this irrelevant. And this has to not a proper noun. Is it stupid? Do I sound stupid if I call it a proper noun versus a improper noun? Or do you just call it like a regular noun or something? I feel like I asked this on a previous stream and I forgot because I didn't write it down. And if I don't write it down, I won't remember it. So yeah, I feel like that's a thing. Okay, so now I need this list of noun phrases. Proper versus common is usually what I go for. Okay. So then I might specify that this is a common direct object. Common, not proper. Okay. So now I need this instead of this. I no longer have these. So we're gonna murder these. Everything is broken now, by the way. There we go. This is now gone, which means this is gone. These are gone. These are noun phrases. Yeah. So then if direct object is present and this is empty, must also indicate if it is a proper noun. So now this is not relevant anymore. Direct object, proper noun. Ignore that. So now all of these markers, we can't do these checks here. We could do some fancy checks over here when we build a noun phrase to make sure our prepositional markers match with our noun declension suffixes. Or if we wanted to be fancy, at some point, we could programmatically determine the noun declension suffix based on the prepositional marker. I'm going to make a to-do for that. But for the purpose of me understanding what I'm building, I might not do that, just so that when I'm building a spell, I can see each individual piece that's going into it, like visually myself. Could programmatically determine in some cases, right? Because I would still need to have that if I'm building like evocative, or not evocative. I can't remember what it's called, but there's not accusative. That's what I'm looking for. Yes. So, because it's spelled wrong. There we go. So let's go back here. So now our builder is really simple, which is fine. Build spell, build verb stem. So now we don't need to worry about it not including the direct object if it's a proper noun, because that's not how we're going to indicate a proper noun anymore. So we can just have this be like that. Let's do a... Oh, because wait, is direct object optional? I guess it is. Dot if present. Verb stem builder append. There we go. Now that's neater. This is the same. Okay. Our post verb is different now. We don't include any of these markers, so we'll just delete that right on out of here. Okay, so now we're building unincorporated objects. So this changes. So now this is all going to be done together within one thing. So instead, what we will do is for our noun phrases, we will do a for each noun phrase. We are going to essentially do this. Our string builder, append a space, because each of these will be a separate word. They will be a separate phrase. They'll be space separated. Yes. So then what it will do is it will call noun phrase dot build noun phrase. And it will do that for every noun phrase, and then it's done, and that's it. Which is super simple. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. And then I'll just have to rewrite this. So I think that is sort of fixing this, maybe? Potentially? Let me go ahead and delete this, so that I understand this. So now what's going to be broken is all my spells are broken because my object has changed. So these should be relatively simple. Oh gosh. Verb root, action morpheme, and then it goes straight into pronoun spatial. Okay, this should be a list now instead of a map. We got rid of 4 things. And then we also got rid of the optional this is a proper noun thing. Which, where was that in the order before? Do I have that anywhere? I don't feel like I have. Is this one? Fire. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's the 5th one. Great. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if I delete this, it works. Okay, so the red lines basically mean it is broken. So we're going to unbrokenify this. 3, 4, 5. Delete that. Delete 4. And this is a list. So all these simple ones didn't change at all, right? So same will be the case here. I can basically just do this and fix all of these. This change may have not been as difficult as I thought it was going to be. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, 4. And then we don't need false here anymore. And that's still correct. Okay. And then this, we lose 5 of these. This is a list. That's fine. This one's going to be complicated to fix. This one will not be, so we'll just fix it real quick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Boom. That's complicated. That's complicated. That's complicated. Are any of these easy? This one. This one's easy. And if you'll notice, this, these notes that I have up here for that really complicated spell that we mentioned that has like all of these complicated like clauses, this is a spell that I need in my book. So I need to have this supported, this type of spell, and that will require clauses. So we'll have to do that later. But for now, let's go back up to the first angry one and fix this. False is fine. False means that this is not a proper noun, which it just means wet, which is in this case used to mean liquid. But now we have the need of a noun phrase. So let's do 1, 2, 3, 4. So here I think we would have our list of, and then we need a noun phrase. So new noun phrase. And this noun phrase only has that prepositional marker within, which I think right now we're just saying is a string. So we'll do that. Yeah. And then after the prepositional marker, it would have a spatial determiner, which we don't have here. So that'll be empty. No spatial determiner, no possessive determiner, no plurality marker. So it'll be 3 empties, which I'm going to be lazy and copy from here. Boom. And then we need the actual noun itself and the suffix, which will be these. Which I think this is correct. Bump, bump. Why is this mad? Oh, require type optional. Okay, yeah. Optional of. There. That is our noun phrase. And then it should be that. Haha! Look at us! Writing code. Writing code. Did it. Okay, so then we just do the same thing here. And this is the exact same example basically. So I think we can just copy this and it'll be very similar where we have this and it's with instrumental instead of within. And then this is an instrumental noun declension suffix and this is rag. But it's otherwise very similar. There we go. And this is the same with rag instrumental. So this is the exact same noun phrase at the end there. So we can, oh, but now I need to know 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Get rid of this. Put it there. Okay. There we go. Blowing through the building. So this is, again, relatively similar. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But we want this to be lative marker through locative, and this is building. Boom. Great. This is dative. That's fine. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Put it here. And then these could have a whole list of noun phrases. Like it could be a whole party up in here, which, you know, could be fun. And I think this will be not too crazy. Is this all of them? Okay. This might work now. And we can see if this works by going here and running my main method and seeing if it breaks. It didn't break. Okay. Okay. So now any of these that had those like lative markers, those valency triggers, which would be like this one, right? Should be different now. So you won't be able to see this. I'm pulling up the PowerPoint on the other, like I can't show two screens at once for some weird reason, but let me go to, okay, so stir this liquid, which is stir the potion. This is different now. So Jav T can replace that here, and this is Lal Mujus, which something that we will need to get to eventually is that I need to make some of these sound a little bit better, which I can partially fix with the Sandhi, but partially might just need to be like adjusting things. And something that I was actually talking about with Jesse is that when people are writing and creating these spells, they're going to want them to sound good. So like, even if I have a word for, you know, liquids already, if that sounds really weird combined with everything in the spell, they might have used a synonym instead that would sound better, or they might change the order to be less ideal just so that it sounds good because they're saying it a lot in a spell. So she reminded me that I should very much remember that and as needed use those sort of principles to kind of make sure all the spells are good, which also means that this is going to be a bit of a trial and error where if something's not turning out the way I want it to, I need to look at it and maybe consider changing how I'm creating it. Because in theory, like there's different ways for me to build a lot of these. Like I could create them differently, but that is not today's problem. Yes. Okay. So let me think for a minute. We fixed the noun phrases. So that is the first thing we fixed, which is good. Very good. But we need to do clauses still, which I think it might make sense to do a similar thing that we did with this, with clauses, where they're like a separate object, just to make it make sense. And I think that would be good. I think that would be good and make this all make a lot more sense. But it is 9:34. So I don't think I'm going to tackle that tonight. I think I will tackle that in the next stream, which is not currently scheduled. I was considering it on Sunday, but I have a writing group thing on Sunday and I'm doing a interview, which actually I will shout out to you all when it goes live, but I'm doing an interview for another channel that does conlanging about this weird conlanging approach, which will be fun to sound like I have no idea what I'm talking about on another channel. It'll be great. It'll be great. I don't know if I've actually showed up on anyone else's channel before, other than the Artifexian podcast, which was completely unrelated to any like actual stuff I do. It was just like a trivia quiz. So I'm very nervous. But I'm recording that on Sunday. So I can't do another conlanging stream then, but I can do it another time. I will get it scheduled. I don't know when yet. This month is legitimately killing me. I don't know about any of you out there, but January is the month of death. Not literally, but just like everyone, like last year, everyone's sick. No one, knocking on wood, in my family has gotten sick yet, other than my husband having COVID. No one else has gotten sick yet this month. But I'm assuming that will happen and they'll be sick all the time. And then there's all the snow days and it's just crazy. So I'm not going to commit to anything yet, but in the next stream, we will do clauses. And then after that, I'm not sure what we'll do after that. It'll depend on how far that gets us. But we'll also be doing on the 19th, the separate stream to build the naming language for the current book I'm writing, my Magic Forge project, which will be interesting because it'll be my first time doing that with after having done actual conlanging, I guess you could put it. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes, and I might try and tweak some of the base program while I'm doing that, maybe to make it more general purposed. So we're gonna have fun with that. I'm gonna create like titles and names. Like there's gonna be some world building in the names that I'm building as well, other than just random generators for syllables. So it'll be a little bit fancier. I don't think I have anything else to mention. I don't know. Does anyone have any like quick say goodbye questions? Camila says, so real, January is not my friend. Currently trying to fight off a cold and a migraine. Oh no. Migraines are the worst. Yeah, I feel like everyone gets sick in January and it's just all the things. So I'm trying to take it easy on myself and not fill up my schedule too much, which I often do. But yes, I think, yes, those are the conlanging things we have coming up soon. I'm working on my next world building guide part, which is on era building. It's going to be like empire fragmentation and era building through the Middle Ages is going to be the gist of it. So I'm working on that. My revision guide thing is going to come out soon. I don't know. So I'm working on a lot of things right now, but we will get back to this soon. And, I appreciate everyone watching. See you next time. You woke up at 6 a.m. for this stream. Oh my gosh. 6 a.m. Wow. That is devotion. Thank you. I am deeply honored. But yes, thank you everyone for watching. I will see you next time. We'll do this again. Thank you all for the help. You're all wonderful. I appreciate all of you. Thank you so much. Yeah. Okay. Goodbye. Goodbye. How do I end the stream? Where's the button? Okay, bye.